NFL World when NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And today we had a bombshell dropped in the NFL as the Miami Dolphins and Pittsburgh Steelers have agreed to a trade to send Jalen Ramsey to Pittsburgh. Now, let me explain what happened here. This was a shock trade because Rapport tweeted this out shortly after it happened, saying this trade was dead in the water a week ago. So something changed over the last couple days that said, okay, no, let's pursue this. Or they truly wanted Ramsey out, one or the other. But I do want to admit this. This was a crazy trade. And the reason I describe it as a bombshell was the amount of levels to this thing. It's insane. This was more like an NBA trade. So Jalen Ramsey says that he's getting final. The Dolphins are finalizing a deal to send Jalen Ramsey to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. The trade details that normally come out a couple minutes after that weren't coming out. We were like, okay, what's happening? And then it's found out it's a player for player swap, which is shocking. Those don't happen very often. And the trade swap was Jalen Ramsey for Minkah Fitzpatrick, who got drafted by the Miami Dolphins. And in the last 35 years, there's only been 4 players traded from in between these two teams. Minkah Fitzpatrick was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2019. Now the Steelers are trading Minkah Fitzpatrick back to the Dolphins in 2025. Fitzpatrick has 2 years left on his deal, by the way. That becomes evident a little bit later. Jalen Ramsey joins him. And the fourth player, this is the other player. This was included later on. Jonnu Smith was also traded from the Miami Dolphins to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a late round pick swap. That only came out after Adam Schefter said part 2 of this trade, which surprised me. Here's what Schefter actually just. Let me grab this real quick. Like Schefter was just reporting about TJ Watt, which we'll get into TJ Watt a little bit later in this video. So as that loads, okay, hang on. Got it. Got it. Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay. We're back. So as this loads, we'll continue to talk about how the Jonnu Smith stuff happened. Schefter said that's part 2 of the trade, which I thought those trades were completely separate. It was just 2 individual trades by the same team. That's not what happened. It was included. So Schefter said the trade was actually Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith and a 2027 7th round pick head to Miami. The Dolphins receive Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 5th round pick. How does this indirectly or directly affect TJ Watt? Well, as Schefter just tweeted out, sources in recent weeks, multiple teams have discussed whether they can trade for Steelers standout TJ Watt, who has skipped the team's most recent minicamp. Pittsburgh hasn't shown any willingness to deal Watt so far, but he is unhappy with the contract situation. And sources believe outside teams' interest is likely to increase given today's trade. That was from about a minute ago. But there's a lot of moving parts to this. When I saw this trade happen, it said Ramsey headed to Pittsburgh and a pay raise, a $1.5 million pay raise, increasing his total to $26.6 million that he's going to get in compensation this year. The Ramsey salary on the salary cap was not too much. It was like $10-11 million. It wasn't a lot of money, but cash owed was about $25-26 million. $1.5 million on top of that as well. He was paid $4 million by the Dolphins this offseason. They used $3 million to facilitate this trade, so it's $7 million from their behalf. The Steelers are taking $26.6 million. That's what they're paying just Jalen Ramsey, which I kind of found was a shock that they were going to pay that much out of this trade. So there was that. The Jonnu Smith one was just out of the blue. I didn't know this was going to even happen, that he was going to get traded. Played with for Arthur Smith in Tennessee and in Atlanta, now in Pittsburgh. That's not the shocker. The shocker was the contract. They got him a new contract, 1 year, $12 million. Jonnu Smith was not going to play $12 million in Miami. So there was that. Pick swap for Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey for Minkah Fitzpatrick. The reason I said earlier about Minkah Fitzpatrick has 2 years left, Ramsey has 1. Paying $26 million for 1 year, and then another $12 million for a player that only has 1 year on his contract. You're devoting a lot of money to this, to 2 players on your team, but 2 new players on your team, I should say. So I think the Dolphins won this trade. You guys can debate that in the comment section. But I do want to say this. I didn't see this trade happening today on the 30th of June. I did not know we were going to have fireworks before the 4th of July. Okay? I was not aware of that. I was not aware we were going to have fireworks before the 4th of July, but we did in the NFL, and that's the way this works. Also said by Schefter later on, he said this. He said, now that Jonnu Smith, who was the starting tight end for the Miami Dolphins, by the way, is going to Pittsburgh, the Titans are talking to team about tight ends, meaning that there could be another trade in the near future for the Miami Dolphins trying to get a tight end. Maybe Kyle Pitts? Who knows? It just brings it up. So this trade doesn't just affect Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jalen Ramsey, and Jonnu Smith, and Pittsburgh, those aspects, but it also affects TJ Watt, what happens in his contract situation. There's a lot of moving parts to this, which I can't understand. That's how the NFL works. But now this, but Schefter just tweeted out about TJ Watt. That's the next domino that you have to wonder what happens in Pittsburgh moving forward. But yes, I think Miami won this trade because Minkah, who does everything for that Pittsburgh Steelers defense, he can play box safety, but he's better at free safety. He played free safety last year. They had Deshaun Elliott go and play box safety, and which is what he's good at. And you could just see that difference. But to trade one of those guys who is a starting safety for you to get a starting corner, you're kind of like, okay, what's going to happen now at free safety? You hope they have a plan in place for that. And the Dolphins, they wanted Ramsey, and the Dolphins were going to break up. That was a divorce that we all knew was happening. We just didn't know to what. The rumor was saying that Ramsey wanted to go to the West Coast. He's going to Pittsburgh, not exactly West Coast. But he'll be in Pittsburgh. That built it secondary up a little bit. But then Miami needed a safety, and they got one. And it's a reunion because Minkah goes back to Miami. Before we go, I want to give huge credit to Rick Scoops, or otherwise known as Slick Rick, on Twitter. He said this weeks ago that this was going to happen. He said it a week ago that it was going to happen. He said, it's going to happen. I'm hearing this. It's going to happen. I want to give all the credit to him. He said this would happen. It did happen. He's a people's insider for a reason. That's the reason why. Let me know in the comments how you grade this trade of Ramsey to the Steelers. Okay, we're back. How do you grade this trade of Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and the 2027 seventh round pick to the Steelers for Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 fifth round pick? Grade this trade in the comments section. And let me know who won this trade. Was it the Steelers or was it the Dolphins? For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert with the breaking news. Out.